Welcome to the Extraordinary Purpose Podcast, where we explore some of the truly difficult questions and challenges that parents and their families face every day. Whether it's the sometimes painful process of parenting teens and young adults, navigating relationships with your partner and children, or you discovering your purpose in relationship with yourself, we will bring heartfelt and vulnerable conversations to the table to support and empower you. Our mission is to help you create a lifestyle full of love, passion, adventure, and influence. Here we go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Extraordinary Purpose Podcast with Erin in a solo episode today. I am so excited to be here with all of you. And it's my first solo episode of 2026. Chris and I recorded one the other day, so that's probably out by now. And that was a really fun episode to record. And I promised you during that recording that I was going to be recording this solo episode. And I'm very committed to you, to myself, to start bringing weekly solo episodes to everybody out there in our community. So welcome to 2026. I hope you're all off to a really peaceful, productive, beautiful energy start to 2026. Like we mentioned the other day, Chris and I had a rough start to the new year. Chris got really sick on that first day back to work and school and, all of that good stuff. And so, we are so connected with our family and business and everything. So when he's sick or I'm sick, it throws the other one off. So I did my best to maintain everything in business and family. And then, of course, I got sick about 3 days into him being sick. So my goodness. But I wanted to talk with you today about how Chris and I wrapped up 2025. I've been doing a lot of thinking about how important it is to really reflect and to celebrate, all the good things, all the positivity. Chris and I coach a lot. We preach a lot about celebration, how important it is to not leave the scene of accomplishing a goal or overcoming an obstacle without celebrating ourselves. We are not necessarily taught enough in our culture to celebrate ourselves, to celebrate our wins and all the goodness. And so I'll be really transparent with you. I was struggling a little bit thinking about the year ahead, as we were coming to a close right before the holidays and especially right after Christmas ended. I was really, we all energetically start moving into the new year and collectively really start thinking about renewal and what's coming up for us. And especially me being so immersed in life coaching and personal growth, I think I have this high expectation of myself to have a lot of my goals figured out and, be able to really practice what I'm preaching, which we all know we can't always be that person. And so I was really struggling a little bit to think about what was really important to me in this year ahead. And I realized why. Chris and I were spending a lot of time in the last couple months of 2025 just kind of being down about things, focused on, where we weren't hitting our goals for the year in business and in life, and just honestly being kind of negative and really feeding off of each other with that, talking about what didn't work, what wasn't working, what we didn't accomplish. And we both know better. We both, we know when we're in the process of doing that we should not be allowing that negativity to come into our space. And so I recognized that we really had to regroup. And so what we did is one of the days that week between Christmas and New Year, we sat down for it was probably almost 2 or 3 hours. And I found an audio that we listened to that kind of was like a journaling, gave us some journaling prompts. And we sat down and we really reflected on 2025. And we didn't just talk about it. We didn't just think about it. We actually, I'm the real journaler. Chris doesn't journal as much as I do, but I made him get his journal out. And we really thought about and wrote about all of our reflections. So our challenges, right? What didn't go well? It's good to recognize that. We don't want to bury our head in the sand. We have to know what didn't go well so that we know where to pivot and what we want to change. But we also did a lot of deep writing about what we're proud of, what we learned, how we grew from our challenges, where we're proud of ourselves, what did go well. And that was so, so powerful. And it helped me to really get some clarity. Excuse me, I'm still getting over my cold. It helped me to get some clarity on kind of what I recognize to be sort of a common thread throughout 2025 for me personally. And so, I'm starting out here talking about Chris and I, but this episode's really about how I made some really empowering choices for myself in 2025. And I want to share that with you because, maybe you're starting out this year on the fence, or maybe you have this calling to do more for yourself as a mom, as a woman. Maybe you want to take some things into your own hands. Maybe there's some places in your life that you really want to transform. Maybe you need to get your partner on board, like I had to get Chris on board. I'm going to share all of this with you in a minute here. Maybe you have to get your family on board to help out more, to make some real changes in your home and your family so that you can better yourself as a woman, as a human being, as a mom. And so that's kind of why I want to share this with you. And also, some of the things that I took into my own hands, I have a sneaking suspicion some of you might be struggling with as well. Or, maybe my goal is that you hearing my story a little bit will give you some permission to do some of the same things. So Chris and I had that day, and I walked away with so much more clarity about what I wanted this year, because I was like, you know what? Yes, we didn't hit every goal and some things didn't go well, but man, by the time we were done with that sort of journaling reflection session, we recognized just how amazing of a year we actually had. Financially, in business, with our kids, our growth as a couple, an empowered couple, our growth as individuals, how we supported each other and how we want to support each other and hold each other more accountable going into the new year. We recognize how much we grew as parents, how much of what we're bringing to you every week in our podcast and our newsletters, what we're coaching your kids on and what we're coaching other parents on. I think more than any time in my whole career as a life coach this past year, I've really it's really anchored into my own parenting and how I'm showing up every day. So there was so much beauty. So it's not too late, you guys. It's still just a couple weeks into January. If you are going into this new year kind of like we were, beating yourselves up a little, maybe focused on what didn't go well in 2025, where you wished you would have done something different. Take some time. I promise you, give yourself an hour. Go on YouTube, or there's so many places to find, meditations or visualization exercises or journaling prompts, or even just turn on some good instrumental music and set a timer on your phone and just journal out what went well for you in 2025. What did you learn? How did you grow? I promise you're going to come out with some extraordinary evidence that things were not as bad as you thought, and that's going to give you clarity going into this new year. Okay, so that's a little context as to where this is coming from. And so what I really recognized, this sort of common thread that came up for me, is I felt very proud of myself as a woman. I felt proud of myself as somebody who in her late 40s, and yes, I know it takes sometimes that age to really step up for ourselves, right? To advocate for ourselves, to really start saying, you know what, I'm sick and tired of this aspect of my life. I'm tired of being tired. I'm tired of complaining. I'm tired of things not shifting. And we take some drastic measures and take things into our own hands. So the area in my life where I feel like I probably did this the most, because I could talk about a lot of different areas. I got kind of on a high after Chris and I had that, reflection session. But the one area where I feel extra proud, because it's an area that I've struggled with for probably the longest in the last many, many years, is my health, my wellness, my longevity, my energy. So my physical well-being, my physical appearance, my physical health, And also just internally, right? How I'm taking care of myself and also my mental health. So just my overall sort of like holistic well-being and health. And so I'm going to kind of break that down a little bit for you. So in terms of like my physical health, I have struggled with how I look for a while now. So please remember that I was a model for many years. I know I've mentioned that on this podcast before. I started modeling as a teenager. And although I never had any real body image issues or anything, believe it or not, I was always really just confident with how I looked. I was never super, super skinny. That's not the kind of model I was. I was thin. I'm 5'10", I'm tall, but I have broad shoulders and I have boobs. And so as far as like high fashion, that really skinny model type, that was never me. But I never had body image issues. I was just very grateful. I was always very well aware that I was tall and thin and I was blessed, and I felt very grateful for that. What that did, though, is as I got older, got into my 40s, and, my body started to shift and my face started to shift, and we start to age, right? It's just part of our life. I have struggled with that. I really struggled with seeing myself in pictures. And so it shifted in my early 40s. It started to shift a little bit more in my mid 40s. And then definitely as I started approaching more of my later 40s, I was starting to feel really, really uncomfortable in my own skin. It was starting to really get to me. I hated going shopping. Still do a little bit because things have just really started to shift for me. I'm going to get into all of that here in a second. But didn't like looking at pictures of me. And I was hearing myself, putting myself down in front of my daughter, which killed me. And, I would, of course, follow that up with a conversation with her and explain that I wanted her to know where I was coming from. I wasn't hating on my body or my image. I didn't feel as healthy as I wanted to feel either, right? Gaining that weight just did not make me feel healthy. So I wanted her to understand the context of where I was coming from. Because, the truth is, yes, I know we're told we're never supposed to be negative in front of our daughters, especially we don't want to give them body image issues and things like that. But you know what? I kind of call bullshit on that a little bit, because we also want to be authentic with our kids, right? I think it's okay for my daughter to know that I wasn't comfortable with how I looked. And no, I shouldn't have been beating myself up or calling myself fat or anything like that. So that's why I would, if I did catch myself in a negative state with that, I would go back and have that conversation with her. And so that was happening for me. Okay. And then this past year, what happened is a couple things started really surfacing, I think culturally, in our culture, in our country especially. And for me, it was this coinciding of like, I probably started really paying attention to these few things I'm about to talk about because of what I was struggling with and my age and like what I'm approaching in my life. And, what I'm kind of considering this midlife right now, to be honest. So I started, I'm very into personal growth. I listen to tons of podcasts. So I really started paying attention to the conversations around hormones and perimenopause and how that's impacting us as women, impacting our moods, our weight gain, our mental health, all of it. And a lot of it, obviously, I started to resonate with. So I was kind of in the background. I read Fast Like a Girl, that I heard her on a couple podcasts. And she's very knowledgeable about hormones and perimenopause and menopause and our cycles as women. There were so many amazing experts and just other women sharing their stories. So that started to really resonate with me. And I started to think about, when I gained this weight and, what I recognized is I was like, I gained weight in my earlier 40s. And interestingly enough, I gained a certain amount of weight, like it inched up. And then I'd say for the past maybe 3 or 4 years, it's been at this like plateau. I haven't gained any more, thank goodness, but I wasn't losing any. And you guys know, you hear Chris and I talk all the time. I go to the gym 5 to 7 days a week. I am super self-educated on nutrition and healthy eating and clean eating. I have tried keto, I've done intermittent fasting, I've done a lot of different things to try to be shed weight in a really healthy way. And when I say I was overweight and I wanted to lose weight, I'm talking about maybe 20, 25 pounds, right? I wasn't overweight. My BMI wouldn't have been considered obese or anything like that, but slightly overweight. And for me, that felt like a lot. And I think it's relative to all of us. So for all you women out there listening, I'm going to share a story here in a second about a friend of mine who, you would never think that she would have done anything to try to lose weight because she was already so petite, but she wasn't comfortable in her skin. And who the hell are we? Or who was I to judge, her journey, and who are we to judge each other? If you're not comfortable in your skin and you feel that you're bloated or you've gained weight, you have every right to do something about that. So I was not comfortable, and I was learning about hormones and perimenopause and all of that, and recognized, okay, I have not been able to lose this weight. And then another thing that started popping up a lot for me in these podcasts and stuff was learning more about GLP-1s. And so, as you probably know now, that's what I'm getting into, is I'm sharing a little bit about my journey, because I did start taking GLP-1s in 2025, towards the end of the year. So a little bit about that background is, I'll never forget, Chris came home one day. This was probably 3 years ago, maybe. He had lunch with a friend. And he came home, and it was about then when I really started complaining a lot about that I wasn't comfortable in my skin. I wasn't losing weight. I just wasn't feeling that great. And he came home joking and said, hey, you should try Ozempic. And I'm like, what the hell's Ozempic? And he said, oh, I don't want to name the person's name, but so-and-so's taking them, and he's trying to lose weight. And it's this big celebrity craze. Everybody's taking this, these GLP-1s, this Ozempic medication. So we laughed about it, and I moved on. I was like, oh, another diet fad, another diet. I thought it was a pill. I was like, no, thanks. And you have to remember, I'm very holistic. I'm very natural. I had both of my babies. I had home births. I've never been on any pharmaceuticals. I try my best to really not take medication and be as natural and holistic as possible and clean. So the thought of that was like, no way. So that was that, and I moved on, never talked about it again. Really had never thought about it. Obviously, it started over the last couple of years becoming more and more mainstream. We start seeing it more, hearing about it more. And then this past year especially, really started listening up on some podcasts of people that I really highly respect, and started hearing about all the different kinds of benefits that these GLP-1s offer. It's not just for diabetics, obviously. It's not just for weight loss, but there was a lot of other really amazing benefits. On this one particular podcast I was listening to, this couple was interviewing their sort of concierge doctor and asking him about all the popular questions. This was probably about maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And they asked him about GLP-1s, and he said, absolutely. And he named all the reasons why he recommends it, and how, he broke down microdosing GLP-1s as opposed to taking them for people who are more obese and really have a lot of weight to lose. Talked about, all the different aspects of mental health, physical health, and well-being. And one of the things that I did not know about, and I want to say this because it really resonated with me, is that GLP-1s are being shown to really help with addiction, especially very specific types of addiction. But it targets that part of the brain that would normally make people really crave foods. And, you've been hearing about that food noise. People say, well, that food noise went away after I started taking GLP-1s, because that part of the brain, that dopamine that we feel like we need to get from food or alcohol or smoking or shopping or porn or whatever it is that people tend to reach for, it starts to really soothe that part of your brain. It quiets everything down. And that was especially interesting to me because I know I've mentioned on this podcast before that, I struggled with alcohol throughout my life, on and off. And even though for the most part, I would say things in my life have changed so much, in my relationship with drinking and alcohol has changed drastically. Once you struggle with that, it very much is just a psychological disorder, right? And so even when you stop the addiction or the addictive behavior, you often have the tennis match that always goes on in your brain. It's still like, should I or shouldn't I? That would be nice. Oh, but I shouldn't. Oh, and so it doesn't really necessarily completely quiet down. And so I was like, wow, that's interesting. I started adding up in my mind all the different ways that this drug could potentially benefit me. I'm not diabetic, but I am, half Native American. So high cholesterol and high sugars tend to run genetically in my background. And so I do have really high cholesterol. I have elevated sugars. I had this weight that I could not figure out how to lose on my own. And, the addiction, the addictive piece, like quieting down that part of my brain sounded really appealing to me. The longevity, the energy shift, there was just so much. So I hung on to it in the back of my mind. And this is just how I operate. When something intrigues me, I start my research. So I started researching. I started looking into this. I started reading and Googling and ChatGPTing, and I wanted to understand more about how this worked. I am not someone who just goes and jumps on a bandwagon and starts taking something or eating something. Excuse me. So I did my research, and then two more things happened that kind of tipped the scale for me. No pun intended. I was in my morning routine one morning, and I don't even know if it popped up on my phone or how I saw a story by Serena Williams, which many of you maybe now have seen her. She's the face for Roe, right, for that GLP-1 company. But I think this was right before that marketing campaign went live, I read her story. And I was like, okay, because I think what was holding me back is I had this little tinge of like, I felt guilty, or I felt ashamed somehow, or embarrassed. Like, how could I ever tell people I was on GLP-1s? People look at me and think she's tall and she's thin and this and that. And like, why would I take something like that? It just didn't feel right. I was judging myself, which is what we do. So reading Serena Williams' story, I was like, my shoulders dropped, and I started to like really feel this sense of permission to do what I need to do. What is right for me, Erin, as an individual, as a woman, not worrying about what anyone else is going to think or what anyone else's opinion is. What would be a good pathway for myself? And so listening to her story, reading through her story, she had, her children. She was not able to lose those extra 30 pounds. I mean, it's Serena, right? She's an athlete. Of course, she knows how to eat well. Of course, she goes to the gym constantly and consistently. She just couldn't lose the weight. And her doctor recommended GLP-1s. And so she, just like me, she researched them. She talked to lots of other people. She found out so many other women that were in her shoes at her age were taking these. And so she got some real firsthand information, and she went for it. And she, over a year, lost the 30 pounds she wanted to lose. And she wanted to speak out, like kind of what I'm doing here. She wanted to share her story to give other women permission to take their health and their lives into their own hands, to say, look, you don't have to be a diabetic. You don't have to be obese. You don't have to have a reason for everyone else, as long as you know that this is right for you. So that was super empowering. So I was really close at that point. And then I started telling Chris about it, right? I was telling him what I've been reading, what I was researching, and he's so great. He made lots of jokes with me. He started looking into it with me. And then the final straw was on Facebook. A friend of mine, kind of an old acquaintance from back when I lived in New England, shared her story. And this is the girl I was saying who was always kind of petite and had this cute figure, and you would never think in a million years that she would be on GLP-1s, right? But she shared her story, and she was bold and brave, and she created a video, and she just wanted to let other women know, like, hey, this is why I chose it. This is why you can too if you want to. And she said, if you have any questions, she's like, I am such an advocate for this now because it's changed my life. I'm here to answer questions. So you better believe I messaged her immediately. And the next day we jumped on a quick call, and I asked her all kinds of questions. And she told me that she was doing this sort of microdosing program through this one company. And she asked me, told me, whenever you're ready, let me know. I can help you get started if you have more questions. And so I did. It took me another month of calling her and messaging her and asking more questions because I was kind of nervous about all this. So all of that to say, you guys, I started that journey and it was hard. It was hard for me to do it. It was hard for me to get, Chris's buy-in 100% because this is nothing insurance covers unless you medically need it. So it was, another sort of monthly expense that I was getting us into. And he's been amazing and recognized that I had been struggling with this, these voices in my head and this issue for a while. So I went for it, and it's been just about 3 months now. And it's been an incredible journey for me. I have lost some of the weight I wanted to lose. I definitely have much better energy. I feel so much better about myself. And I know this is kind of just the beginning. When you're microdosing, you can stay on GLP-1s long term. So I don't have a cutoff date yet. And so, but I don't want to get too far away from why I'm sharing this, is that I feel so proud of myself for taking that step in my life, for overcoming my own judgment on myself. I have not shouted this from the rooftops yet. I haven't even shared this with my kids yet, to be honest, and more because I just wanted to see where this was going to take me. I wanted to give it 3 solid months and see if this was something that I was going to continue on with. And so, it just empowered me when it sounds like such a simple thing maybe. Okay, great, you tried something new, you tried GLP-1s, but it was about more than that. And the other piece that I took into my own hands this year is Chris and I, we used to work out in one of those franchise gyms. We worked out at Crunch. He still does sometimes. It was right on the corner where we live. It's easy, it's convenient, it's cheap. But I kept saying for maybe the past year and a half or so that I wanted to join this other gym in this town. We live in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I wanted to join this other gym because I wanted to start doing other classes. I've been strength training and doing cardio my whole life. I love it. My body's shifting, and I've just been craving more yoga and spinning classes, and I really want to start doing Pilates. This other gym has all the amenities, a steam room and a sauna and a hot tub and a pool. I wanted to start swimming. And it's very expensive and it's a tiny bit further from home. And so we've been talking about it for the last year and a half. And this past year, just a little bit before I started the GLP-1s, I just said, we're doing it. It was actually at the end of the summer. I said, I'm switching gyms. You can do what you want, but I have got to stop talking about some of these things. And I just know that for my mental, physical, emotional well-being, this is going to be good for me. And so we did. We switched gyms, and it has proven to be true. I'm taking lots of different classes now. Chris and I use all the amenities at that gym. Like literally, we'll go back almost every evening, and we sit in the steam room, and we go in the hot tub, and we talk about business, and we just kind of do another extra hour of self-care. And it's turned out to be just extraordinary for us, for our relationship, for business. And I'm meeting new women at the gym. I plan to ask them pretty soon if they want me to start doing a meditation and journaling class there. So there was a lot of reasons why I knew this would be a good move for me, and it has proven to be one. And so, you guys, just those 2 steps alone, had I not taken the time to stop and reflect on this past year, it would be easy just to think, okay, great. Yeah, I finally jumped on the GLP-1 bandwagon, and yeah, I switched gyms, like big deal. But no, there was so much more substance to both of those moves in my life. There was so much more to it. If I didn't take the time to really think about it, I would not have really seen that and really taken it in and celebrated myself. And so I'm really proud of me. I'm proud of myself for taking my health and my well-being and my longevity and my energy into my own hands, for having, several different conversations with Chris to really be able to, it wasn't like asking his permission. It wasn't like I had to explain myself, but getting his buy-in and his support as my partner and my best friend to help me decide if these, were the right choices for me. Being willing to create 2 more expenses in our monthly budget to make room for things that were important for me, because as moms, right? You girls know that it's so easy to put everything everybody else needs first. The kids need this, my partner needs this, the business needs this, we need this for our home. I'll put my stuff off. And that's how I've been for a long time in my life. And so the fact that I created a space in our monthly budget to take care of myself, and it would have been easy to feel like, though, these are just like luxury purchases and it's about my appearance. And maybe part of it was, but it was about so much more than that. So I give you permission, if you need anyone to give you permission, to start taking better care of yourself this year, to create the budget for you to invest in your health, in your well-being, in your mental, physical, spiritual health. I give you permission. Okay. If you guys have any questions about anything I share today, feel free to comment below and I will absolutely reply to you. I'll probably be sharing more about the GLP-1 journey as I continue it and how it's benefiting me. I'm actually going to get my blood work done in the next couple weeks. So I'll probably give you an update on my sugars and my cholesterol. Because remember, you guys, this isn't just about our physical appearance and how we look. It's how we feel in our skin, yes. It's also how we want to take care of ourselves as we go into our late 40s, 50s, 60s, and finding these little biohacks, finding ways that we can look better and younger, feel better and younger, and protect our longevity and our energy is so worth it. Okay. So I love you guys. I hope you have a beautiful rest of the day. And until next time, have an extraordinary week. We are so thankful for you and your beautiful family and hope you found something inside today's episode that brought you hope, inspiration, and most importantly, a path forward. If you're interested in evolving your relationship, giving your kids the most important gift of personal growth and development, or are a mom looking to reconnect with your confidence and become empowered in all areas of your life, then schedule a discovery call with us today. Our mission is to help as many families as possible find their purpose, and that starts with you. See you in the next episode, my friends.